Hi guys, thanks for joining me. So in today's video, I'm going to be going over a full free 8-week weighted calisthenics strength program. So this is basically going to give you everything that you need for the 8 weeks to be able to increase your strength, to build muscle, and basically give you a complete guide so you know where you're going, where you start, and where you're going to be finishing. So each week I'm going to be going through the different steps of intensity, reps, rest times, and different things like that, and talking about how heavy you're going to be lifting and basically give you everything you need to get to where you want to be. Before we get into that though, if you're new here, welcome to the channel. My name is Lee. If you want more content like this, more free workout guides, calisthenics, bodyweight fitness, hints and tips tutorials, and just general advice on how to reach your fitness goals, make sure that you subscribe, hit that bell icon so you get notified of whenever I upload. If you found this video useful, please give it a thumbs up and share it with anyone that you think it may help. And if you have any questions or if there's any way I can help, please comment down below and I'll do my best to help you out there. Also, if you're new and you may not be aware of it, I do have my own calisthenics merch. I've got this one, I've got a Built by Rings, I've also got a pull-up one, and I've got a calisthenics one. So make sure you go and check them out. The first link down below will take you to my Teespring store. So if you want to just support the channel or get yourself some calisthenics clothing, make sure you check that out. And every time you do that, it does help this channel. So thank you in advance. With that out of the way, let's get into what you guys have come here for, which is going to be a 8-week strength program. And this is going to be aimed at doing weighted calisthenics. So this is broken down into an 8-week thing, which we're going to be calling a mesocycle. So this mesocycle is 8 weeks long, and it's going to be broken down into 2 phases. You've got the microcycle of phase 1 and another microcycle of phase 2. So this is then broken down so you guys have got a clear progression of where you're going to be starting and where you're going to be going. It's very, very handy before we begin if you have an idea of what your strength level is, or for instance, if you are doing a weighted pull-up, what is the max weighted pull-up you could do? So it gives you a good idea of intensities you could base this off. Before we go any further though, I just want to make you guys aware that regardless if you're doing a full body routine or whether you're doing a body part split or a push-pull leg, something like that, this is going to be broken down into weeks, not per session. You might find with a program like this, because it does get very, very intense, and because of some of the rest periods, you might find a body part split to maybe a push-pull legs or even an upper body, lower body might be more time efficient, just because as we get through into the later stages of this, the rest times have to be longer and the amount of sets that we're going to be doing is a little bit longer. So if you're doing multiple exercises, not only is that going to be more draining, but it also might just take each session a lot longer. So you might find just doing a push-pull legs might be the most beneficial, but you can still do this with a full body. If you're doing maybe 2-3 times a week, you might find, because this can be very intense, you might be better doing 2 times a week. But I guarantee you will be getting everything you need from this program, and you will be getting stronger, and you are going to be building muscle from it. So don't worry if you feel like the frequency is a little bit lower, or you're maybe switching to a different style of program because obviously due to the time frames. But with this, you want to be picking one exercise per sort of, I would say, body part or muscle group. So for instance, if you're doing a full body, maybe doing a weighted pull-up, a weighted dip, and maybe a weighted one-legged squat, or if you've got access like I have, I've got a trap bar where that will be my strength building leg exercise. Something like that would be beneficial. Or if you're doing a push-pull legs, basically making it so the strength portion of what we're going to be doing here would be a weighted pull-up. And if you wanted to add in maybe some, inverted rows or maybe a little bit of bicep work as sort of supplementary, which is again like the video I did previously on how you can do a bit of hybrid training, you could possibly do that. So they're just some general guidelines of what we're going to be doing or what you can do with this program. But I'm going to be laying down the main foundation of what you're going to be doing with your chosen exercise and obviously your weight and so forth. So the first week we're going to be looking at, we will be working around 75% of our 1 rep max. So again, this is why it's very, very handy if you know what you can do. There are calculators you can have online. If you were to say you can do 5 reps or you can do 10 reps with maybe body weight or maybe a 5 kilo or a 10 kilo weight plate, it will do a percentage of what your 1 rep max would be or what different percentages are. So something like that is very, very handy to check that out. So here we will be working with 75% of our 1 rep max, and we will be doing 3 sets of 8 with this. So we're going to be doing 3 sets of 8 because our very first week We still want it to be fairly challenging, so it's 8 reps and not more, but we want to be fine-tuning the form because we're going to be choosing these exercises for this whole cycle. We want to start getting in a little bit of reps to fine-tune the form, and we're going to be doing 3 sets because the higher the reps, we still want to get a good amount of volume in there with this thing, but it's going to be 3 sets. So this means that this first week is going to be actually quite quick sessions for you, but enjoy it while it lasts, because as we go on, these sessions are going to get more intense and longer. So we're just doing 3 sets of 8. It's still going to be challenging. One thing I do want to get through to you guys, there's one point where I want you to go to failure. There's one point where I want you to go to fatigue. But in each of these workouts, I do not want you to go to failure. I do not want you to go to that muscular fatigue, okay? That's not the best thing when you want to be doing your strength training. Leaving a rep or 2 in a tank is what I want. You do not want to be going to fatigue, especially if you're doing multiple sets. Again, further down as we get more intense, because as you go to fatigue, your performance, your strength output, your ability to be able to exert a lot of tension in the muscles and be able to put tension and force in those muscles starts to decline as you start going to fatigue. So ideally you want to be doing these exercises as straight sets. You don't want to be doing them as supersets or doing these exercises back to back. You want maximum attention, maximum ability to be able to put tension and force into those muscles. So you don't want to be going to fatigue and you don't want to be supersetting them. So the rest period for this one, again, I'm putting this down as a minimum, is I want you to have 2 minutes minimum. Try and make this accountable. So if you're going to be doing this for week 1 and every single exercise, every single session, however many times you do it, try and keep a minimum of 2 minutes and try and keep it even. If you need 2.5, you need 3 minutes, fine. But I want you to have a minimum of 2 minutes rest. It's going to be very difficult for some of you that want to go a bit harder, or you might find that it doesn't feel like you're doing anything. If you get to 8 reps and you haven't gone to failure, it doesn't really feel like you're doing anything. Where what we're doing is we're training the central nervous system to take higher intensities and to be able to exert force and do it again and again. So we don't need to go to failure to do that. So in week 1, that is where we're going to be. 75% of our 1 rep max will be playing around with 3 sets of 8 reps while leaving a rep in the tank. You don't have to leave 2 or 3, but just go it so you've got perfect form and you feel like, oh, I could do 1 more solid rep, and that'll be it. And then we're going to have a minimum rest of 2 minutes. We then will progress into week 2, and this week we are going to be working with 80% of our 1 rep max, and we're going to be moving our reps and sets to 5 by 5, and our rest period is going to be a minimum of 3 minutes. So unlike other programs that you will typically see or typically do, a lot of them will have you just doing the same intensity every single week and the same rep ranges, and then what they might do is they'll say, right, once you hit a certain rep count, just add more weight. Well, here we are increasing the intensity within the program, so we're having to work harder. We're having to place more tension and force into the muscles to be able to do that. But our rep and sets are correlated with that. They are adapting with the intensity. So again, 8 reps for 7. We're now lowering the reps to be able to match with our intensity. But because we are lowering the reps, we need to bring up the sets so the volume stays high enough that we're able to get enough work done to elicit a good response and also to build muscle as well. But we want to get the volume in so we're able to get the work done, and that's why we're doing that. So again, the reps and the sets have now gone to 5 sets of 5 because the intensity is now 80%. We're now having to lift heavier weight and we're going to be getting stronger from it. Because that is now increasing, the intensity is now higher, we need to have a longer rest. If you haven't watched my previous videos, you might be wondering, okay, why is the rest period going up? Why are we having 2 minutes and now 3 minutes rest, where normal workout programs might have me resting a minute and a half, 2 minutes, let's say? Well, because the energy system that we're going to be using while working with these high intensity ranges is the ATP-CP energy system, or the creatine phosphate energy system. This is the energy system that is used for maximum strength and power, and it exerts a lot of force, but it depletes very, very quickly, and it takes a longer time to replenish. You can find a chart if you want to look up ATP, CP, energy system resynthesis, or whatever it is. You'll find a chart, and basically it takes a certain amount of time for it to be able to recharge, to resynthesize the ATP from ADP, and it takes time to be able to do that. It can change from person to person, but a good ballpark is something like, I think it's like maybe 80% or 70% after 2 minutes. We want to get that as close to 100% as we possibly can to be able to exert maximum force, because our idea here is not to burn out the muscles, but it is to lift as heavy as we can, to recruit as much of our muscles as possible, but really activate the central nervous system and get our central nervous system as efficient as possible. So we need to be lifting heavy, and we need to be allowing our body to have the energy to be able to do that and lift at a high intensity for a prolonged period. So our phase 2, 80%, 5x5, and it's 3 minutes rest. We then move on to week 3, which is going to be 85%, and we're going to be working at 8 sets of 3, and we're going to be having 5 minutes rest. Okay, so we're ramping up the intensity once again to now 85% of what our 1 rep max will be. Because of that intensity increase, we are now doing only 3 reps. Because the reps have dropped down again, we are now going to be increasing the amount of sets, so we're still getting a good amount of volume. So again, 24 reps here, 25 reps here, we got 24 reps here again. So we're making sure that we still get a number of reps in, we still get a good amount of work done, good amount of volume done, because again, that's going to be good for building muscle. But the more often we can do this, we can reinforce those good movement patterns, reinforce those strength gains, reinforce that movement pattern and that ability to exert strength. That is what we need to be doing. So we're going to be doing 8 sets of 3, and we're having 5 minutes rest here. The reason why we're having 5 minutes rest here is because for any of you who have never done it, doing triples is very, very intense on the central nervous system. It's very, very intense on the muscles. We need to make sure that we're fully recovered if you're going to be doing that, especially over 8 sets, because it is very demanding on the body and it takes a lot of concentration, and mentally and physically. You need to be making sure your form is spot on here. So we want to be having at least 5 minutes and be consistent with that. This is why I said if you're doing full body, this can take a bit of time. Don't worry about it. Like I said, if you've got the time, do it. It's going to be worth it. But that's why I said it might be more beneficial to do maybe a body part split to more of a, I would say, a movement split, so a push-pull legs, because then you can focus all of your effort into that one session and get it done. So that's where we're going to be going here. And this is where we're going to be taking a slight back off, but not too much. So here, at week 4, we drop it back down to 80%, okay? But here we're going to be doing 3 sets of 5, and we're going to be having 3 minutes rest. So this might be a little bit confusing for you if you've never seen this before. But a lot of time in this sort of instance, people would introduce maybe a deload, but it's the idea that we've been ramping up the intensity, and especially if you're new to this, this can be quite stressful on your central nervous system. So we're having a slight back off. Instead of having a rest week or a deload, we're just bringing back the intensity slightly, dropping the volume so your body can then overcompensate, get used to this high level of intensity training, back off a little bit to then recover a little bit more, so then you have the harder phase that's going to be coming. So we're dropping it by 5%. This might only be 2.5, 5, 10 kilos for you, whatever it is. We're dropping it back slightly, and then we're going back down to 3 sets of 5. So as you can see, we did 80% here at 5x5. Okay, now we're only doing 3 sets of 5. So our body has had the ability to recover from 85%, and it's also had the ability to recover from 80%, but doing 5 sets of that. Now we're dropping the intensity back. Our body's used to recovering from 85%. Now it's going to have to only recover from 80%. So then that recovery should be more efficient, and your body would have fully adapted to still lifting heavy, but only slightly backed off. Your body then has the ability to either recover from 8 sets of overall high intensity work or 5 sets of 5. We're now only asking it to do 3 sets of 5. So now we've backed off slightly, we're still lifting heavy, but we're giving that body that ability to catch up over the 3 weeks of work, get adjusted to it, to now say, right, I am now accustomed to lifting heavy, bring on the next phase for me. So we're then dropping it back down to 3 minutes rest because the intensity is lower, so this will be slightly faster paced. And that is going to be the finish sort of the first phase that we're doing. It's the lighter to prepping to slowly building up the intensity to slightly back off to where we're going to be going in the phase 2, which is going to be the real test, the real intensity training. So we move into phase week 5, which is going to be 85%, okay? And we're going to be doing 5 sets of 3 with 5 minutes rest. So again, we are repeating this slight process. We're doing 85% again, but this time we're only doing 5 sets of 3. Again, we're accustomed to recovering from 8 sets, but we don't want to go straight back up from 3 sets of 5 to then doing 8 sets of 3 again, because that's going to be a huge jump. We want to ramp up the ability. We're wrapping the intensity back up. We're now doing 5 sets of 3, so the volume is a little bit lower, but we've still done 15 reps worth of work. And bear in mind, once you're working with these higher intensities, you have to ramp up to get to your working weight as well. So you have to be aware you're not just doing 5 sets of 3 reps. You would have been doing ramping up to get to your overall work weight for that week. So you could have broken that up into, maybe you're doing pull-ups, and let's say, 85%, let's say maybe 40 kilos for you. You might start off a set with just body weight. Then you might try 10 kilos, then 20 kilos, then 30 kilos, and then you then get to your work weight, and then you do your 5 sets of 3. So you are still doing a still amount of volume, but you're doing 15 sets with a very high intensity. Because the intensity is gone up again, we're looking at 5 minutes. The other way in which you can replace this is with the idea of Allen. And I'm a big fan of this, especially if you're new to this. It might be a little bit hard to deal with, and that is the idea of you basically rest as long as needed. Okay, so that might be 5 minutes for you. If you're new to this and you're finding it's very, very taxing, especially if you're not used to whether you've picked the right weight, you might be getting there to third rep and you might think, oh, maybe I had an extra rep in me, I'm not more. But I found that set very, very taxing, and I've got another 4 of these to go. Rest as long as needed. Rest when you feel ready to go. I would say put a minimum of 5 minutes, but if you need 6, 7, 8 minutes, doesn't matter. The priority is you perform these 3 reps with perfect form. You're putting a lot of tension in the muscles, and you're exerting as much strength and putting as much tension in those muscles, and you're recruiting as much muscle and as much of your central nervous system as possible. Your priority here is performance, and performance of getting those 3 reps perfect. That is what we are after. So rest as long as needed. Okay, so week 6, we're going to be going up to 90% of our 1 rep max. Okay, very, very hard. For some of you that have never done weighted calisthenics or high level thingies, this is going to be taxing. It's going to take time to build up to it, but it's one of the best ways is this high level working. 85 to 95% is where you're going to get maximum strength results, and this carries over. Okay, this is a great way to train. Higher risk, but if you put the form in and you train right, you get enough rest and recovery and everything is right in there, it's very rewarding. So here we're going to be going up to 8 sets of 1. So as you can see, there's a slight pattern coming here. 3, 5, 8, 3, 5, 8. And then the thing is, we're going from 8 reps to 5 reps to 3 reps to then 5 to 3 and then 1. So we're working in these different sort of sub blocks of what strength training will be, whether it's going to be maximum strength, whether you could technically say 8 reps might be a little bit muscular endurance to a degree if you're still exhibiting strength, and we're going down in these traditional blocks which are broken down into these different things. And what I've done when I first created this program, and I did this when I did my personal trainer course, I had to create a strength program which obviously they had to assess whether it was sound and whether it would work, and this is the one that they passed me on. They actually afterwards, which was very, very humbling, they actually used my program to exhibit the training and what they do on their course to show other people what's possible. And they actually used this as an exhibit to show what people on the course can do, because they were that impressed with it. I've done it before, not with weighted calisthenics, but I did it when I was doing my powerlifting, and I had phenomenal results from this. So it follows an idea, but what I was getting at is with these numbers, these intensities, I've intentionally made these intensities line up with these rep ranges because it allows you to definitely leave a rep or 2 in the tank. Typically, if you're working with singles, you're actually working close to 95 to 100%, and that's what it is. Your 1 rep max is what you do for 1. But obviously I'm doing that of 90%, because if you did your true 1 max, 100% intensity thingy, you'd be done. Like, you don't train at that level. You do your 100% intensity, your true 1 rep max. You do that when you test it. You don't train there. That's where you peak, whether it's a competition or every now and again where you're doing things like that. You don't go to failure. So I've scaled it back slightly. Again, Sets of 3 you would typically do with 90 to 95. We're now doing 85%. 5x5 is usually around 82 and a bit, maybe 83 to 85% of your 1 rep max. We're lifting at 80. The reason why I've done this is because you're still lifting at high intensity, but you're not burning yourself out. Burning yourself out and strength training do not go hand in hand. You burn yourself out, go to failure, and hit that fatigue when you have to, but you don't train there. So 90% for week 6, and we're doing 8 sets of 1. Again, 5 minutes, or Alan. I would recommend closer to Alan. Rest as long as needed, and basically just go when you're ready. Again, 5 minutes and you're doing 8 sets, you're going to be resting a long time. And that can be quite time consuming. For some of you that might feel boring and you might be tempted to go, oh, bugger it, 4 minutes is enough or 3 minutes is enough, I'm going to do it. It won't. You need to let your central nervous system recover. You need to allow that ATP to resynthesize, and you want that as close to as 100% as possible. And that mental focus. When you're doing singles or when you're doing triples, for any of you that never done it, you have to have 100% concentration in what you're doing. You can't be, oh, just stand up and go, just go from point A to B. You need to be concentrating on what that weight is doing, whether you're doing deadlifts, whether you're doing pull-ups. You're concentrating everything on your form and everything. And when you're concentrating that hard, it's exhausting. So that's why you want to be resting for as long as possible. So that is what that builds up to. 8 sets of 1. Again, because we're only doing singles, we want to be doing more sets. You could, and it would be better, but ideally you might want to go 10 sets of 1. But again, I can imagine that being quite a long time, so at least you're getting 10 quality thing. But 8 is going to be enough here. This isn't where we're really going to be testing it. So at week 7, 100%. Here it's going to be ramping up as long as needed. This is your competition. And for any of you that don't do competition, this is your mini competition for you. This is what you have been training for, is for this point. Okay? All of these numbers, all of these intensities, as you can see, it's building up to scale back slightly, because this is what we do when we train. And you'll find this is what happens, is you move up a little bit to come down a little bit. But when you come down, you're higher up than where you started. And then you go up. It's kind of like the stock market. What the ideal is, it goes up, it drops a little bit, but it never drops below to where it started. Then it goes up again, and then it drops a bit. Then it goes up and again. It's that idea of you scale up to come back to keep going up. It's a way of making continuous progress. Here you're testing your 1 rep max. Okay, whatever that is, your pull up or your dip or your push up or your one-legged squat, whatever it is, this is your test day. This is where everything goes up to it. Take as long as you need, ramp up to your weights. You can even use the weights that you've put down in these sections to maybe do, a triple, 5 reps on what your 75 was, and then maybe do 3, and then a 3, and then a 3, and a 3, and a 3, because these weights will be easier for you, and build up to your 1 rep max. Have an idea of what your 1 rep max is going to be, or what you would want, what's realistic, and give it your all. You might go, bugger, I want 50 kilo pull up. That is my goal. At the minute I was doing sets of 3 with maybe 40 kilos, or just at like 42 and a half or 45. I want 50 kilo pull up. Build up to it, make that your goal, and then you get it. Whatever it is, if you somehow do not get it, do no more than 3 attempts. If you don't get say the 50 kilos, rest a little bit longer. Maybe drop the weight back a little bit. If you've got access to the plates, you've got that flexibility, drop it back a little. If you fail again, drop it back a bit more. And if you fail again, then obviously your 1 rep max was higher than what it was. You could say, okay, I didn't get 50, but I nearly got the 50, so I'd say my new 1 rep max is 45. And then you go forth. Week 8. This is important, week 8. This is something that people think, okay, once I do my 1 rep max, that's over. Right, so this is important. We either do a deload. And for a lot of people, they go, what's a deload? Or why won't you just have a rest week? And this is something I was having a discussion with yesterday. What's the importance of a deload? Well, the deload is important because you're deloading the system of this high intensity you're doing. If you just take a week off, and I've tested this myself in both situations, if you just take the week off, it's probably best for overall recovery to a degree. Like, you do recover better by doing some movement. So I wouldn't recommend just lying around the house doing nothing. But taking the time off from that training can be beneficial, okay? Allow your body to fully recover. The only problem with that is is that you're going to lose that efficiency of your exercise, the form, the technique. And part of strength is skill. So for instance, you may have realized this, if you got good at doing pull-ups and something happens and you're too busy and you have a week off from pull-ups, when you come back to them, do you not find that when you first jump on the bar, like you feel a little bit rusty on the bar? Like the form doesn't feel like spot on, and it takes a few sets for it to be like, oh, that's better. Like now that feels good. Or it takes a bit of time for the body to wake up and realize what it's doing. That's part of what a deload is that you get rid of the intensity, or you bring the intensity down. A lot of time you also bring the volume down, but you still do the exercise because you still want that efficiency, that skill within that movement. Because then obviously when it restarts, you don't want to be coming back to then restarting the program again, and the first couple sessions your form isn't spot on or it's a little bit rusty, because what I'm going to explain now, which is very, very important of why this matters, is going to be coming up. So you do your deload. Ideally, you could drop it to maybe 50, 60% of what your 1 rep max was back here, and you can do a little bit of higher rep work. But you're not going to fatigue, you're not going to burn, but you can do a little bit of higher rep work. That could be quite good to get in more blood supply, to help that area to recover, to have a break with the intensity, to allow the central nervous system to recover, but you're still doing the form to get that efficiency. So you can work at 50, 60%, and you can maybe do sets of, I don't know, anything from 5 to 10. But you're not going to fatigue, you're just doing the exercise just to give it time. Then what you're going to be doing is, whatever your 1 rep max is, you are now going to be taking that time to then calculate your new 1 rep max. So let's say you were doing 40 pull-ups, and now your new 1 rep max is 50 kilos. You are now going to calculate that 50 kilos to then create new numbers of your new intensity. So again, if you were doing 40 kilo was what your max was before, 75% will be whatever that number is. Now that you're able to do 50 kilos, this number from that intensity is now gone up. So now work out all of your numbers, because this is the great thing about if you already know what your numbers are, you can now calculate all of your numbers. So you can say 50%, 50 kilos is my max, 75% is this much, 80% is this much, 85. You then have all of your numbers now, which is very, very handy for your program. Is it? You know exactly what you're lifting when every time that session comes up. You know exactly how many sets and reps you're doing, and you know exactly what your rest period is. Then with your new, you've obviously taken your 8-week off. The mesocycle is now finished. This 8-week cycle is now done, and now the next week cycle now begins. Your next mesocycle, your next 8 weeks of training is laid out for you. Your new numbers are now calculated off your new 1 rep max. You now do your training and you follow this rep scheme and this intensity scheme and this rest scheme, and you complete it and you go through the phase again. Your slight regression, a little bit of a mini deload halfway through, a little deload. Intensity is a little bit lower, volume is a little bit lower, to give that body, your central nervous system and your muscles, a slight respite to recover, to overcompensate for the next heavy lot, to then test your max. Give it your all. This is what I said. You go to failure at week 7. You don't go to failure, you don't hit the fatigue and all this sort of stuff in this training. This is what your training is. This is where your test day is. This is where failure, going to that maximum, that's where it comes from, because that's your 100%. This is where you test it. You test your new one, and hopefully, you should then improve your number. Your next one could be 60, or it could be even 55, which is still a massive gain. 5 kilos in 8 weeks is a massive gain, especially if you're more intermediate to advanced. That is massive. If you're a beginner, you might get it through here a little bit faster, but that's a massive gain, and that might be just on the pull-up. You could have had 50 kilo dips, let's say, and now you're up to 60 kilo. And then your squat or whatever it is, those are massive gains in 8 weeks. Then you then get your new numbers again. Then you write up all of your new thingies for your next mesocycle for the next 8 weeks. How long can this process go on for? Who knows? It could go on for a long time. This could go on for some people. This sort of idea of training could last a year. Okay? But this gives you a platform of 8 weeks on how you can train, how you can slowly improve your intensity, and also get your body used to lifting with higher intensities. For some of you that, you could be just doing sets of 5 or sets of 8 or something like that. You may have never have trained with these intensities or these reps. So this might be a new challenge for you, but the strength gains that you're going to get from here are going to be incredible. So I definitely recommend you guys giving this a go. And for any of you that start it, let me know how you get on with it for the first 8 weeks. This is going to be the first program of many that I'm going to be creating, and I'm probably going to be doing more strength-based stuff because that's the way I prefer to train myself. So more of these sort of style of programs will come out, but I would love to know how you get on with this, guys, what your opinions are of it. Comment down below, and if you have any questions, please let me know down below, and I'll do my best to answer them. If somehow this wasn't clear enough for you, I will do my best to make this nice and clear and transparent for you. But if you want more content like this, more workout videos, more hints and tips, more general tips, and the best way to you guys to be able to be fitter and healthier and to reach your goals, make sure you subscribe, hit that bell icon so you get notified of whenever I upload. Please give this video a share to get this out there and to help grow this channel. And like I said, if you want to get yourself some calisthenics merch and support the channel, use the link, the top link, Teespring one at the top of the description, and check that out. I really do appreciate that if you do get something, especially with Christmas around the corner. But yeah, guys, there we are. Enjoy.